Right. So we have been able to get this mutually agreed upon pension solution. We've now been able to vote on it here in Houston. 16-1, council passed it, so overwhelming support. Moved to the House and Senate. We passed it out of the Senate committee, and now most recently out of Chairman Flynn's pension committee in the House. So it's on its way to the floor. It does have a provision in there in the Senate bill that there would have to be a referendum. So it's going to be up to the legislature to decide which bill, and they do that through conference committee. They'll select 5 members from the House, 5 members from the Senate, and those 10 people will basically decide which version of the bill, which is identical except for one provision, and that provision is voting on the pension obligation bonds. I think we can make a compelling argument to the voters of why this is an important piece of reform. We'll get them to approve it, whether we have to do it through a referendum or not. At the end of the day, $1 billion in pension obligation bonds seems like a lot of money, but when you look at the $2.6 billion in savings that the plan will generate immediately, I think anybody that says, well, if you give me $1, I'll give you $2.60 back, that's a good deal for the taxpayers. So we're optimistic ultimately it will pass, and we're very hopeful that we can do this in a timely manner, because I've said before, every day that we don't get a plan in place, it's costing taxpayers over $1 million a day in unfunded liabilities. So the time for action is now.
Right. Being the controller for the city of Houston, you have some history there. Is there something that keeps you up at night? Maybe pension reform does. Maybe the debt does.
Yeah, I think, the thing that keeps me up at night is that we don't get something resolved because, as you know, the legislature meets every 2 years. So it's really taken us 6 years to get to this point. We've had multiple attempts at bills in the past. They've all failed, whether that's been local control or other reform packages they've not passed. This is the first time we've actually gotten into committee, but through both houses, both sides of the House. We've been able to push this farther than we've ever gotten. So I feel like if we're on the, it's first and goal. So we really need to get the ball into the end zone here, because if we don't, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and start over. It's going to be another 2-4 years. Again, if you look at that number of the unfunded liability accruing, we're talking about $1 million a day. It's about $400 million every year. So if we have to wait to the next legislative session, $800 million. Actually, the Arnold Foundation said it could be as high as $1 billion between sessions. So think if we have to go to, not this session, not next session, but the next. You're talking about 4 years down the road, that could be another $2 billion. That'd put us over $10 billion in unfunded liability to pensions. The challenge with that is you cannot make incremental reductions to make the plan sustainable. You have to really start making large cuts. And that's where some of these other cities have found themselves. Dallas, Chicago. They're at a point where the membership of the unions are saying, no, we're not going to give up 5 or 10% of our earned pension benefits, and we're going to take legislative or we're going to take legal action to protect our interests. Once you get to that point, it's the point of no return. So we're right on the cusp of that. So I hope that we get this thing passed because. Again,
get it behind us and start
get it behind us, and we can
put things back in the black.
Absolutely. So we would essentially eliminate with this plan $3.6 billion of the unfunded liability. So almost cut it in half overnight, and then pay the rest off in a 30-year closed-loop amortization, much like a mortgage that I just said to all the realtors. So you're paying principal and interest. We have not been paying principal on any of these. We've just been basically paying the interest and deferring a lot of the costs. So, it's like not paying your mortgage, and when you have an interest-only mortgage, it's not sustainable. So I'm optimistic. I think I've been up to Austin now 3 times. I've met with 24 members of the House and Senate, and they've all been very supportive. They've had some concerns about pieces of the bill, but overall I think they're very supportive of the plan, and we're hopeful that we'll get it passed.
A good outcome. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, every month I send you our monthly housing report, or MLS report, and I love it that you acknowledge you received it on the other end. Sometimes it just goes into the inbox. I don't get any communication back. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
In that report, what jumps out at you? Do you see any trends?
Yeah, I think 2 things, and we talked a little bit about that today. Obviously, days on market.
Right.
much
longer.
higher
Yeah.
than they have previously
Right.
been, but still a seller's market, less than 6 months. Total number of sales have gone up, and the median home price keeps rising. So, it's kind of this. I like getting that report because I see, despite this stubbornly low oil prices, we're still seeing a lot of resiliency in the housing market.